the reason I created this piece is because I had a lot of these um, soda bottle cutouts. And this was even before I thought I was going to move. And so I thought, well, I need to do something Halloween on this. I'd already kind of done something Christmas on a soda bottle. And so I thought, well, let's do this. And since I have the little glow forge going, um, I decided to make the little ghost guy a cutout. And I hope you had fun decoupaging your tissue paper on the background. And I think that we should probably go ahead and get started. I really appreciate y'all taking time out of your holiday weekend to join me. Um, I know it's been a busy weekend for everybody, and I just appreciate you being here. So we are going to go ahead and get started. And what we're going to work on first is we'll go ahead and paint on this soda bottle. So you should have had your piece decoupage with your that spider paper or whatever paper you decided to use, or no paper at all. And then this neck area should be based in with spa blue, and the cap should be slate gray. So we are going to work on the cap and the bottle, and I'm going to put up a list of paints here for you. And we're going to need spa blue again. You're going to need warm white, deep midnight blue, Bahama blue, and burnt orange. So I think you can read that along the bottom there, but I'll repeat it. You will need spa blue, warm white, Bahama blue, that won't come out of my bottle, and burnt orange, or burnt orange, no, spiced pumpkin. We use spiced pumpkin. I don't know why I put burnt orange there. Spiced pumpkin or burnt orange, either one will do. But I use spiced pumpkin. And what other color did I say? Let's see. Let me let the ticker go across the bottom so I can see. Deep midnight blue. So I think 4 colors. I'm doing good. Too much red meat. It's got me crazy. Anyway, we are going to work on the cap first. And so I'm going to zoom in on the cap a little. And what we're going to do first is we are going to dry brush some highlighting on our cap with warm white. Don't wash your brush out when you're done, because we have to do some warm white highlighting other places, so we might as well do them all while we have this color in our brush. And again, if you have a certain way you like to dry brush, please go ahead and do it that way. I know some people use a piece of denim and different brushes and stuff, but I use a certain way, and there is a video on my website and on my YouTube page that shows you how I do it. So I'm just going to dry brush some warm white across the center of this bottle cap. And then I also want to go ahead and dry brush this warm white through the center of the spa blue neck on the bottle. So let's get up here in between these little scallops a little bit, and then just all the way through the center of that neck area. You can wash your brush out now. We will use it again later. So wash it out good, and then if you have a towel or something that you can dry it on, go ahead and dry that puppy out so you can use it again later. So we're going to take deep midnight blue, and we're going to float some shading on our bottle cap. And I'm going to do the outside edges first, just to keep it easy. So I'm just going to come down these outside edges with some deep midnight blue shading. So now you're going to think like a bottle cap and how it's crimped onto the bottle. So what I want to do is I want to make these little, gosh, I don't know what to call them, but I'm going to come up at an angle, then go straight across and come back down at an angle, and they're all going to end up making a little point that ends at each of one of these scallops. It's not as hard as you think it is. So there really isn't a point on this outside edge, but you still want to do one. So I'm going to come up about halfway, and then I got that wrinkle there, so I got to work around. And then you don't even really have to come down because your float will kind of already come down there for you. So just gonna do that little V there, and we'll clean it up with a float of a highlight float, so don't panic too much. Okay, so I'm just going to continue adding these little, I don't know what shape I would call that. Somebody out there knows what shape this is, I'm sure. Just to form the crimps in the bottle cap. So I have my crimped bottle cap shading in there. And now I'm going to come back and I'm going to float a highlight above that shading with warm white. Okay. I think what I want to do first, though, is float a highlight along the bottom scalloped edge. So if you have a hairdryer, you may want to dry your little bottle cap so you can get in there and do that. But warm white float, and we're going to go across the bottom of those little scallops. I did paint yesterday, but I managed to not get any paint on my bandage, so I thought for sure I'd drag it through everything. And then I'm going to come up here and float above those shadings of the crimp. And that kind of helps clean it up a little bit, make it stand out a little bit more. You saw how bright that white went on when I put it on the edge. It really dries and lightens up. All right, that doesn't look too bad at all. So we have our bottle cap done. Can you believe that? One thing done already. We're doing really well. All right, now we're going to float Spa Blue on. I'm going to have to back up a little bit, or a lot, not a little. We're going to float Spa Blue down the sides of the bottle and across the bottom with, and we're going to do that. Let me see if I can find a medium size. I'm kind of just talking all over the place. You want to blend it out so it's nice and soft. Spa Blue is this color. And you can start up here if you want to make it easier. Blend it out really well so you get a nice soft float. You can start like up, and you don't have to start all the way by the neck. But I want to go over this decoupage paper. Okay, and I'm going to go all the way down the sides. And across the bottom. I'm going to turn this upside down so I can do the other side. I'm going to reload my float and blend it out. I'm going to come up this other side. All right. And even that float went on really bright, but it tones down after you let it dry a little bit. We are going to dry brush again, and I'm going to do that with warm white again. So you want to dry your um, dry brushing brush out. And we are going to dry brush some warm white down this left side of the bottle on the decoupaged part. I think I'm going to get a little bit larger brush. So dry brush, warm white, just to give this bottle shape a little dimension, okay? And I'm going to go down this left side of the decoupage part of the bottle. So it's going to be wider down here. Where the neck narrows, it's a little narrower. And as you get into the bottle part, it gets a little wider in dimension, not in color. Kind of ran out of paint. Thought I'd get enough on there to get all the way done, but I didn't. And when I get down to this corner down here, I'm going to kind of thin it out and come around the bottom just a hair. So I turn that corner just a little bit. It's looking pretty good, actually. Now I am going to float. You can wash your brush out. I'm going to float some warm white on this blue part of the bottle. On this lower rim, you know how that neck always has that little rim around it. And so I'm going to take my flat brush. Let me get tighter now. We can go a little tighter here. I'm going to be backing up again in a minute. It's not that tight. So we just want to highlight the edge of this lower rim, upper rim here. And that's just done with a float of warm white. You can see it. So now we're going to come in with our Bahama Blue. And the first place we're going to float is under this rim. Okay? So Bahama Blue, I guess I need to turn it this way. Am I making you dizzy yet? So blend that one out too. And I'm just going to come, let's go under the scallops. Again, if you have a hair dryer, you want to dry that out. So you can get under those scallops. Okay, so I did under the scallops and I did under the neck. I'm going to come here and soften that float under the scallops. All right, so again, hit it with your dryer. And you may want to get a little bit larger brush to float with. And what we're going to do is we are also going to float Bahama Blue down the sides of the bottle, but I want to show you, let's see here, I think you can see it better on the black area. This float is going to start under the rim and it's going to go all the way around the bottle again, but you can see here it's just a hair off the edge. You want it to be inside that spa blue float that you did. Okay, so I'm going to back up again. Maybe only that much. So I am going to start right under this rim and I'm going to float Bahama Blue down the sides and across the bottom of the bottle. And I'm just going to keep it just a hair off the edge. It's not as hard as you think it is. Okay. So there we go. See, keeping it off the edge there. Try to keep it, I shouldn't say this because I'll totally screw it up, right? The same distance off the edge. As I said that, I changed the distance a little bit. But you're going to do that all the way around again. So you'll be really good at floating this bottle shape. Okay, even across the bottom, you want to keep it off the edge a little bit. Okay, all the way. See, that got a little wider, but I'm okay with it. So I'm going to come up the other side. A little too much paint there. If I don't have paint on my bandage by the time this class is over, it will totally shock me. Got a goober right there. You never get those, do you? Little goobers in your paint. All right, taking it all the way up to that net rim on the net. Now, as that dries, it's going to look better too. So don't worry about it. And besides, it's not the focal point. Your little ghost guy is. So the next thing you're going to do is you want to take your ghost cutout and just kind of put him on there so you get an idea of where he is. And then you can take your stylus or a back end of a brush, and this is where you need to be careful. You want to, you don't have to do this, but I thought it just needed something. So you want to try to keep your fingers, your hands, your bandages out of the dots. But all I did is I added dots. Let me see. So all of the spider webs are going to be different because of the paper. But I just did dots at the intersections of the spider webs. Just the straight lines, not the curved lines. And so the reason I put this guy on here is there's no sense putting dots under him. That would be a lot of dots. And so you just want to go through and quickly, wherever a curved spider web portion runs into a straight line of the spider web, you just want to add a dot there. And some of them you might not be able to see. And they don't have to be all the same size dots. But it just adds a little bit more character to that soda bottle. And now I think those dots are set enough that I can lift my little ghost off. And I'm going to set this bottle far away. So we are going to work on our ghost. And he's painted with warm white. I need to get my other ghost off. So let's see. Ta-da! I did it. What we're going to do is we are going to float shading on our little ghost with turquoise blue. And this was a little frustrating until I figured out it's a heck of a lot easier if you double load your brush with turquoise blue and then the other side with warm white and kind of blend it on your palette. So what I'm going to do is we're going to need, let me go in here and change the spanner so you know what colors you need. And it's really hard. We're going to need warm white and turquoise blue. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to corner load into turquoise blue, blend it a little bit, and then I'm going to corner load the other side of my brush and go back and blend in the same area so those two kind of get blended together. Okay, and I think I want a little bit more warm white. And I also did walk away from the blue line a little bit. Okay, so with a double load, and I'm probably going to go down here at the bottom, along the bottom, under the sign, just to see what I have. Okay, that's working pretty good for me. Still a little dark, but I think I can work with that. And here again, now this your mop brush is going to get a little dirty here, but if you mop your float, that blends it even more. So you get a little bit softer turquoise blue shading. So I might as well go along the bottom of his hands. And you see I picked up a little bit more warm white, and that helped a lot. So I'm going to do the bottom edge of each hand. And I'm going to do I'm basically going to go all the way around his head. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to start here where that little top knot folds over. So I'm going to start there. I'm going to go all the way around his head. And I'm going to go around that bow. Apparently I'm going to go on the bow. I didn't mean to, but I did. And then I'm going to come back up the other side of his head. I think I want to come in and mop this a little bit, especially around that bow. And then I want to go continue here across the top of his head. And when I get to the little tip of this top knot on his head, what I want to do is I want to kind of fill that up just a little bit. So I'm going to walk that color out and fill up the tip of that little top knot. So what I want to do is I want to come in here on his hands, and when I reload now, I'm mostly just picking up warm white because there's enough blue in my blending area to pick up that. So I'm going to add some shading right there to make it look like his little hand is curved around the sign. So it's next to the sign on what would be his arms. So next to the sign on what would be his arms. And then you also, I didn't go all the way down these sides of his tail, but what I did do is I floated the tip of his tail and kind of walked the color up a little bit. So I'm going to pick up a little bit more warm white, maybe just a touch of turquoise blue because I love to live dangerously. And I'm just going to float inside that little tail. And I'm just walking that color up. And actually, I do look at my original piece. I'm going to walk this. I'm going to come back in here, walk this off camera. I didn't want you to see what I was doing. No, not really. I'm going to walk that color up, and then I'm just going to come up this right side of his tail. And now I'm going to kind of pat and mop that float a little bit. So I put most of the color here in the tip of his tail, and then I floated a little color up the right side. Okay, so you probably want to get your pattern out and just put on the pattern for his little face. If you put the pattern on with dark graphite, especially on his nose, you want to do that very lightly. Let's see if I can follow my own advice. You could put the pattern on for the lettering too, but we're going to dry brush on top of it and stuff like that. So his eyes, his nose very lightly, and his little mouth. Okay, cool. I did it lightly. You can't even see it, can you? So we are going to dry brush some nice cheeks. And I'm going to see if I can get this. I'm going to chalk this on because I got really light on that one. I guess I was afraid. Okay, that's better. So I want to give him some nice cheeks with cactus flower. So let me see. Let's show you the colors we need for that. You're going to need cactus flower and lamp black. If you don't have cactus flower, just use whatever pink you used for the bow and just lighten it up a lot. So I want lamp black. I want cactus flower or whatever pink you want. You have turquoise blue on your palette and you have warm white on your palette. And you're also going to need cranberry wine. And that's all. Those are the colors we need for his little face. So the first thing I want to do is I want to give him some little cheeks with cactus flower. And if you're not using cactus flower, lighten up that pink that you used for the bow. And just give him a couple of nice round cheeks. And those cheeks sit right under his eyes, kind of off to the side, but under each eye. Okay, and they're pretty good size. And it doesn't matter if you dry brush on your bow a little bit, it'll be okay. So I'm going to give him those nice round cheeks. You can wash that brush out. And what we want to do now is we want to float in the nose with cactus flower. And I did that with 2 little C strokes to form the top and bottom of his nose. So let's turn it this way a little bit. So I'm going to float the top of his nose in. You can make his nose as big as you want, apparently. And then I'm just going to come back. If you don't put your brush all the way down, you can float the other side in while the top is still wet. So you just want to connect them and make a little oval for his nose. You want to go ahead and paint the eyes and line his mouth in with lamp black. And I'm just going to use a liner brush to do that. I seem to be able to control it. I say that hesitantly because who knows what's going to come out of this brush. Control the size a little bit better. So I'm going to paint in his eyes, and yes, one is bigger than the other. They always are with me. And they're just nice big ovals. Okay. So painted in his eyes. And then I want to line his mouth and those two little, I call them stirrups, at the corners of his mouth. And you want to make the line for his mouth thick enough that you can line a highlight on it, okay? That brush is being a little booger. So I'm just going to go and give him his little stirrup and his little stirrup there, okay? It'll look better when we get the highlighting on it. Now, we want to add this little shadow that's above each eye, and if you painted with me before, you know that we always do that. We're going to line a shadow above each eye with thin turquoise blue. We're also going to do it above the nose and below the mouth. So thin out some turquoise blue, and I am going to get a different liner brush. So I want to thin my turquoise blue down. You don't necessarily need to add any white to it unless you feel like it's going to be too dark. But I am just going to line a shadow above each eye. And usually when I do that, I'll start on the tip of the brush about halfway down on one side of the eye. And as I come around the top of the eye, I kind of flatten the brush out a little bit. And then I come back up on the tip when I get to halfway down on the other side of the eye. If that makes any sense at all. But if you've painted with me at all, you know the drill. So I'm going to go up and around this eye. I need a little bit more water in my paint. It wasn't moving very well. And come down on the other side. And I'm going to line that little shadow above his nose. And I'm also going to go below his mouth. So first of all, we want to give him some eyelashes. And he just has eyelashes across a little bit of the top of his eye. So I'm going to thin down some lamp black. And with my liner brush, I like to just squiggle these on. And so what I do is I thin down my paint, load my brush, get a nice little point on it, and then I set, and it's hard to see because it's black paint on my brush, but I set the tip of the brush down in the center of the top of the eye, inside the black, and then I just kind of squiggle it out and give him some little lashes. Just kind of squiggle it back and forth and scribble some little lashes on there. If you want to line them individually, you can go ahead and do that too. I don't care. Well, I care, but not enough to hunt you down and fix it. Okay, so we are going to, I'm grabbing another brush here because I didn't like that one either. We're going to paint that little crescent-shaped stroke that's in the bottom of each eye with turquoise blue. Just one coat. It doesn't need to be a bunch of paint. It can just be one coat. I didn't thin the paint down. I'm using a liner brush. I can't tell you what size this one is. It's probably a 2 or a 4. But what I'm going to do is I don't try to do it as a stroke. I just kind of paint the shape and then fill it in. So I'm going to start up here, and as usual, I put it in the bottom of each eye, but I come up off the edge of the eye. So there's a little black rim that's along the bottom there. And then I just add the top, make it kind of fat, otherwise he's not friendly. So just paint a little crescent stroke in the bottom of each eye. If I was a real technical type painter, I would do this with, the round brush and make it a stroke, and we do it all in one, but that's way more work than I want to do. I'm not really happy with the shape of that one, so I'm going to change it. And all I'm going to do is take some lamp black, and I'm going to paint over the part I don't like. So I made it a little more crescent-y, if that's a word, right? So you can always fix those shapes if you don't like them, just by painting out the parts you don't like with lamp black. Okay, so now we are going to line a highlight through the center of these turquoise blue strokes. Again, you're going to use your liner brush. You're going to pick up some turquoise blue, and you're going to pick up some warm white just to get a lighter value. You don't even have to mix it up completely. I'm just going to take this lighter value and add a couple of lines through the center of that crescent shaped stroke, just to highlight it a little bit. So then we're going to take straight warm white, and we are going to add these little highlights that are in the black part of the eye. They're just a couple of little set downs. You can also line the center of the black part of the mouth a little bit. We need to do a float of cranberry wine in the bottom of his nose before we do this highlight in the top. In fact, we'll go ahead and do that first. That makes more sense, right? We are going to take our cranberry wine, which you probably put out a great big old puddle, right? And just float a little bit of cranberry wine in the bottom of his nose. Now we'll add those little highlights in the black part of his eyes and on his nose and on his mouth. So I'm just going to set down a warm white highlight right there. And then I'm just going to go across from it, diagonally across from it. I have to think of all these words. Ooh. And add a smaller dot. So the larger dot, and then go just diagonally across from it and add a smaller dot. I'm going to add a little stroke across the top of his nose. It can be a comma stroke, but if it's not, that's okay. And then just a line through the center of his mouth. And as long as we have warm white in our liner brush, you want to set your little ghosts aside for a minute. And your dots should be set on your bottle now. So what we're going to do is we are going to line some warm white highlighting on the bottle itself. And I'm going to do it on both sides of the top rim on the neck. And then I'm going to go all the way down the left side. And this is a little bit inside that Bahama Blue float that we did. Well, not all the way down the left side. I'm going to go about a third of the way down onto the decoupage paper with a highlight of warm white, just your liner brush line. And then here in the bottom corners, you want to do a little highlight, since we already have warm white on our liner brushes. And then we'll be completely done with the bottle part. So first I'm going to go here, and it's kind of curved like the sides of the neck are. The one on the left is a little larger than the one on the right. And then I'm going to start up on the blue neck, inside the Bahama Blue float that we did. And I'm just going to pull this down about a third of the way onto the decoupage portion. Then I'm going to come down here to the bottom, and I'm going to start not a third of the way, a couple inches up on the sides, and I'm going to come around the curve and just trail off here on the bottom. And then there's a smaller, shorter. We're going to start lower here. Oops. You can see how shaky I am. And do that in the other side, the right side of the bottom. We don't do anything on the right side of the bottle. So now we can go back to our little ghost guy. We're going to work on his little bow tie. So I'm going to get close for you. Okay, little bow tie. That was painted with Joyful Pink. If you didn't have Joyful Pink, you could use like Royal Fuchsia or something. But we are going to dry brush some highlighting on this guy with Joyful Pink. So let's go to the bow. Then you're going to need Joyful Pink, Warm White, and Cranberry Wine. And you already have 2 of those colors out. Unless you did your base painting earlier before class, you probably have Joyful Pink out too. But we're gonna dry brush some highlighting with Joyful Pink plus Warm White. So we're just making a lighter value of that Joyful Pink. It's kind of a pretty color. If you don't have it, you may want to get it or tell someone you want it for Christmas. Okay, so I'm gonna dry brush through the center of each of the loops. And also on the knot. Don't wash your brush out. You want to pick up a little bit more warm white so you have a lighter value of that pink. And we're going to dry brush again in those same 3 areas, but we're going to keep the lighter color towards the top. So it's not going to go all the way down. So I'm just going to dry brush a little bit brighter here, here, and here. Okay, 3 little spots. Oh, you can wash your brush out now. There are little stripes on the bow, and they look like they're done with pink, but they're actually done with thin warm white. So you want to get your liner brush out and thin down some warm white. If you want to add checks or dots or nothing at all, that's fine. Won't hurt my feelings at all. So what I did is I left a little area where I didn't stripe for the loops, right? Well, actually I did stripe and then I shaded on top of them, but it'll just be easier. So I did vertical stripes on the loops. And horizontal stripes on the knot. And you kind of want to curve them to follow the shape of a bow. So vertical. Didn't get as many stripes on that vertical. So we're going to let that dry a little bit. And you want to get out your drywall mesh tape, which looks like this. Back up. And we're going to work on this green part of the sign. So let me back up a little bit more. Look at my hairy arm. Okay. And what we want to do is we want to stencil some checks on the green part of the sign with moon yellow. So you want to get out moon yellow and your favorite brush to stencil with. Could be a stencil brush or Sometimes I like to use a cosmetic wedge sponge to do my stenciling. This doesn't have to be opaque. It doesn't have to be lined up perfectly. You just want to stencil some checks. I'm going to turn this over so I can get at it a little easier onto that green border. I got a little bit on my hand here, so I'm going to get my wet brush and just wipe it out. So just have a little wet brush handy. There we go. And it doesn't have to go, well, I guess I'll use the right side of the brush. It doesn't have to go all the way to the edges. If it doesn't make it there, that's okay. There's shading on the edges. Probably a little easier to control where you're stenciling if you use a stencil brush. But I haven't found one I just really love. I'm still on the hunt. But I just wanted to add some interest to the border, that sign, a little bit. So it has some little checks all the way around. So now I'm going to go back to the bow. And what we want to do is we want to float some highlighting across the top of the loops and the knot with that joyful pink plus warm white. So that a lighter value joyful pink, just brush blend it on your palette, and you're just going to go across the top of the loops, across the top of the knot. I'm going to come over here to the other side and just add a little highlight of that lighter value joyful pink. And then we're going to float some shading, and that's going to go on either side of the knot and in the bottom of the knot and across the bottom of the loops. And that's done with cranberry wine, which you should still have on your palette. So I'm going to go, let's go next to the knot. On either side. I'm going to turn him over. I'm going to go across the bottom of the loop, across the bottom, in the bottom of the knot, so that's kind of like a C-stroke. And then I'm going to go across the bottom of this loop. Now, I could make you go in there and float inside the loop, but you end up just filling that whole space in anyway. So just make a little wash of cranberry wine, and with your liner brush, just paint the inside of the loop. Much easier than trying to float it. So sometimes I do think about how to make things easier for you. We are going to go to our green borders on the sign again. Let me back up a little bit. And we've already stenciled moon yellow. So let me get the colors you need for the rest of it. So for this sign, you're going to need moon yellow, which we have out, warm white. You're going to need black forest green, heritage brick, and turquoise blue if you need fresh. So we are going to dry brush some highlighting with moon yellow. First, we're going to dry brush moon yellow through the center of the orange part of the sign. So moon yellow, we're going to dry brush through the center of this orange part of the sign. And by the center, I mean you don't go all the way to the edges. And don't stress about getting it all nice and even, because there's lettering that goes on top of it, right? So we're going to just dry brush through that orange sign. Don't wash your brush out when you're done with that. Now we're going to pick up some warm white on our dirty brush. It has moon yellow in it. And you want to dry brush a lighter value, a moon yellow. You're going to do this on the green part of the sign. Just scrub it on through the centers of each side. Don't totally obliterate the checks, but it does go on top of them. Here in the corner, down this side a little bit. And then you're also going to dry brush this lighter value in mainly the center of the orange sign. So you just want to, you're not going up here in those corners or down here in this corner. You're just kind of keeping it in the center area. Then you can wash out your brush. So now what you want to do is you do want to go ahead and put the pattern on for your lettering. You don't have to put on all these little detail, little dots and lines and stuff. Just the basic lettering for Boo, Juice, and if you want to put the 100% sheet free. Let me see if I'm going to get the right side of my graphite paper. And my pencil. So I'm just going to kind of put on, it's pretty squared off, this lettering. So I'm just going to put that on for Boo, and there we go. Wanted to do this before we did our shading. We're really close to done, guys. I always say that, and then it takes like 45 more minutes, but hopefully not this time. See if I had it right. I did! Yay! I had it facing the right way. So we are going to float some shading on the green part of our sign, and it's going to go around this orange sign and above and below his hands, and it's also going to go on the outside edge, and that's done with black forest green. So on the green part of the sign, you're going to float inside and outside edges with black forest green. So what I will probably do is come and go around his bow first. And I'll go above his hand. I'm just going to go all the way around, and whatever is on top of that green border, I'm going to float some shading above or below it or next to it. So his other hand, I'm going to come below it and above it. And then his face is over it on this side. So I'm going to do it next to his face. So we're going to do this. We're going to go all the way around the orange square with floats of heritage brick. We do have more floats to do on the green, but I want to let those floats dry. So we'll go to the orange, and every side gets a float of heritage brick. So across this top here, down, and after you come to his hand like you do on the left side, you want to go around his hand. It's always a him. Right's not, it should be a her because it's got a pink bow. I'm going to go across the bottom of that orange part of the sign. And I'm going to come up the other side. And this kind of goes around his hand a little bit. Under the bow. And then under his chin. Okay. Now let's go back and finish our shading on the green part. Again with Black Forest Green. We're going to float on the outside edge all the way around. So, and I like Black Forest Green on this Irish Moss. Irish Moss is one of my favorite greens. Of course, painting Halloween a lot, it's a perfect green for Halloween. All right. And then you're going to go around the orange sign with a float of Black Forest Green. I always think I'm painting really messy. But then when I look at it the next day, it looks way better. You want to go ahead with lamp black and paint in the word boo, and you want to line the lettering for juice. The lettering that goes along the bottom here that says 100% sheet free, you can do that with an Identipen or a Sharpie, anything to make it easier. Okay, so for right now, you just want to paint in the word boo with lamp black. And we want to go ahead and paint the juice with our liner brush. All right. Now this other lettering I'll do with a pen, so it will look nice and neat and be much easier to do. So I'm going to dry this really quick. If you don't have one of these, it's a Ranger heated craft gun. Love it. I did not kiss it. That's just how some paint got on there. But it looks like lips, doesn't it? So the boo, I'm just going to take my flat brush and corner load some turquoise blue. And I'm just going to float a little bit of turquoise blue in the top of each letter. Because we just need to add some interest to them. Quick and easy. Okay? On the juice, you want to get out a little bit of your Irish moss, which we haven't used. And the same liner brush that you painted it with, you want to go ahead and line some Irish moss in like the top half or 2/3 of each of those letters. Quick and easy, a little highlight or add some color. As long as we have our liner brush out, let's go ahead and line a shadow on the background around these letters. Something I always do, and that's going to be with a thin down heritage brick. And I'm just going to go across the top of each letter and down the left side. So if there's a left side on the letter, which includes those open spaces in the B and the O, you want to line some shading. And that just makes the lettering pop off the background just a little bit more. And I'm even doing it to juice, because I want it to pop off a little bit. Thankfully, I didn't do an ingredients label, or we'd be here all night. Quick and easy. There is a little turquoise blue stripe that goes around the orange part of the sign to separate it from the green part. So liner brush and some thin turquoise blue. You just want to add a stripe, and surprisingly, I did not shade and highlight this stripe. It must have been a weak moment. I must have been tired. Something was going on, because it's not like me. But I'm just going to separate the orange from the green with a turquoise stripe. Okay, now these little extra dots and scribbles you can do with thinned lamp black. You can do them however you want, or you can follow the pattern or the picture. But you just wanted, it just added some more cuteness to the piece, I thought. So just go around and add some little scribbles and dots here and there, just to cute up that lettering a little bit. And by scribbles and dots, I don't want them to be nice straight lines. I want them to be a little squiggly and nervous, which is really good for me today. And, you know, it is all about what I want. So as long as you understand that, we'll be good. Right? Okay. Now, let me see here. I think I'll get my Sharpie out and do the bottom here, the lettering on the bottom. And then you can glue this guy on to your bottle. Give him a couple coats of varnish. And you have another Halloween piece ready. Don't forget to sign it. And I think he's pretty cute. If you wanted to add more like dots and stuff around the boo with your pen, that'd be okay too. Anything to just add some interest to that little guy. So you just want to glue him in place, sign your piece, and you're all done. So thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it. And if you joined late, you'll be able to watch the replay as soon as I end this live broadcast. And I do want you to be aware that we are going to be taking a break starting tomorrow. And because of the holidays and because I'm moving to Oklahoma and I need to pack up my paint room so I can turn this back into a bedroom so we can sell the house. But I totally plan on being back in March of 2022 because technically I don't think we're going to be completely moved until the end of February. And it's going to come with a couple of little changes. And so it's probably going to be a little bit earlier time. And it's also going to be Halloween Addicts Anonymous with a side of Christmas. So I'm going to stick some Christmas projects in. We might not be doing Halloween every single month, but we'll be doing something every month. And in the meantime, I just want to thank you all for joining me. It's been 14 months that we've been doing this, and I have enjoyed every minute. I've enjoyed creating these designs for you. And I can't believe I'm going to be away from it for so long. But hey, it's a new adventure. So thank you so much for joining me. If you have any questions, just put them in the comments or email me, and I will be happy to answer them. I hope y'all have a great Christmas and a safe New Year. And please be safe out there with the new variants and stuff that are showing up. I just want y'all to be safe and healthy. So thank you so much. God bless you.